guys. Welcome back to the Left of Straight Show Interviews, the premier podcast that shares the stories of our amazing LGBTQ community and, of course, fantastic straight allies, all from entertainment, foodies, books, music, and advocacy. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and let's start talking. All right, everyone, welcome back here to Left of Straight Show Interviews. Today in studio, I'm thrilled to have a truly multifaceted guest on the show. He's a martial artist, model, singer, songwriter, producer, and mental health advocate. He does it all. Mr. Bo Baskaro is here. Bo's journey in the entertainment industry is as diverse as it is inspiring. With roots in Portland, Oregon, Bo has steadily carved out a niche for himself in multiple creative fields, all while advocating for mental health awareness. His music resonates with raw emotion and sincerity, and his latest single, Tongue Tied, captures the complexities of love, vulnerability, and communication. Bo's journey has been just about pursuing a career in music and modeling. It's also about giving back, and his advocacy for mental health, particularly in creative communities, adds another layer of depth to his already impressive resume. As someone who's experienced the ups and downs of life and career, Bo channels his experience into his art, making his work deeply relatable to many. I can't wait to chat with him, but first, take a look. There we go.
Nothing I say goes how I want it. I tried to have game, but I'm the opponent. The look that you made shouldn't have faced me. My summer skin, babe, you got me caving. You're the one thought clutter in my mind. I think of you and my heart rate flies. I try to tell you, but I get tongue-tied. I don't wanna get caught in your emerald side, breaking my heart cause you miss each time. I'd make a move, but I'm not the type. Trepidatious, I try keeping my distance, but falling for you, you make it easy. And all your sighs and irreverent teasing, interim love, but I never change it. Light me up and let me sink. I love the way you're breaking me, cause you're the one thought clutter in my mind. I think of you and my heart rate flies. I try to tell you, but I get tongue-tied. I don't wanna get caught in your emerald side, breaking my heart cause you miss each time. I'd make a move, but I'm not that type. Nobody's making a sound. Two hearts are caged inside and trying to break out. The facade that's hiding me, I feel it crumbling before the moment's gone. I try to say it perfectly, but all the words escape from. You're the one thought clutter in my mind. I think of you and my heart rate flies. I try to tell you, but I get tongue-tied. I don't wanna get caught in your emerald side, breaking my heart cause you miss each time. I'd make a move, but I'm not that type. I try to tell you, but I get tongue-tied.
All righty, we are back. That was Tongue Tied with my very special guest today. Mr. Bo Baskoro is in studio. Bo, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to meet with you. I've been following your career now for a bit. We've been good friends with your manager, Scott, for a while, and he never steers me wrong. He kind of started sending me your music a couple months ago, and pretty impressed, my friend. You're doing a dang good job out there.
Man, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, it's well-deserved praises. I can't wait to get into all of this. I always like to start, though, with a little background. We talked about Portland. Tell me about where you grew up and what kind of a kid were you back then?
Oh, ooh, that was a good question. So I grew up in the suburb of Portland. There's Rockwood and there's Gresham, and I spent a lot of my time back and forth between the border of those two, and then deeper into close to a town I'd say called Boring, Oregon, and um, so I think I've counted now since I was a kid. I've moved about, specifically in the Portland area, I think I've moved about 15 or 16 times just in Portland alone. That doesn't include all the other, moving up and down the West Coast I've done. But um, as far as what kind of kid I was, that's a really good question, Scott. I I don't know, man. I think to sum it up, I just kind of I was pretty shy. I was pretty shy, and that's actually a lie. I just lied to you. I just had a flashback. I remember my mom telling me my first day of kindergarten, I came to school with a pink and purple plastic like briefcase,
Oh,
slammed it
nice.
on the table.
Nice.
And I said, "My name is Bo Baskoro, and I know everything." And my mom was like, "Oh no, he's gonna get beat up." And so I was a pretty confident kid back in the day, but uh, life humbled me quick. And so I think the more I started growing up and kind of like wanting to have friends, the quieter I got, um, the more I think the more introverted I became, which is kind of
Mm,
ironic considering I wanted to have like I wanted to have friends. But I think a lot of it came from the fact that my interests just weren't the same as other kids.
right.
At that time, I was really into a lot of fandom, video games, anime, and cartoons, and a lot of my friends were mostly into sports at that time. So
All right.
there wasn't a lot of uh,
Shared
relatability.
experiences there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
share experience as a child. Um, but I think like the older I got to, the more I started kind of finding my people, and finding people that helped me get out of my shell a little bit more. So I was a to sum it up, I was pretty withdrawn for a while, broke out of my shell, became a lot more adventurous, but I feel like I always had a fantastical imagination throughout all of that. So um, I don't know how articulate or how well I explained what kind of kid I was, but
I
that's
think you did
that's what I
very
got for
well.
you.
I like it. And I love the movie. I think that's a law in Portland. I told you off air, I lived there for 5 years. And same
Yeah.
thing, I think I moved to Troutdale and ended up going to Gresham and ended up going to downtown, to the
Yep.
northwest side. You just end up bebopping around that city. It's
Yeah, and I
crazy.
think I think Portland's a great city to do that because it's so small, that it's so everywhere is accessible and quick.
Right, exact. I even went over to Washington, to Vancouver, Washington for a while.
Yeah, it's right there.
But I
You
was
literally
a
you could
restaurant manager was back in those days, and so I was at all of the Tony Roma's rib places. So I'd pop around
no
all the different
way.
locations. So yeah, it was
That's
crazy. But
awesome.
I love that city. I mean, it's amazing. I know you're a big outdoor enthusiast, and with
Mhm.
Mount Hood there and the river and everything, that's got to be a great place to grow up that way, at least.
Love that. Yeah, right next to the Columbia River Gorge. And so I spent most of my childhood growing up um doing the hikes, doing the waterfalls and everything in the gorge. That's like that's still my haven.
There you go, Multnomah Falls. I can spend hours there. Just
Ooh,
I love
yeah.
that place. Yeah, it's funny though. I mean, we talk about the weather in Portland. When I first moved up, I moved up there because my best friend was going to chiropractic college, so I went to that chiropractic college right off the freeway there. And I moved there, and it's like they said, "Oh, you're going to love Mount Hood," because I like going to the outdoors and hiking and everything. And they said, "You're going to love Mount Hood. It's gorgeous. It's right around the corner. You get there in 10 seconds."
Mhm.
First 6 weeks I lived there, I could not see Mount Hood. It was rainy every day. It was
Oh,
overcast. All of a sudden, like the 31st day, it's like, whoa, there's a
here's
mountain
a
right in your face
yes.
there, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
there.
my uncle, my family on my dad's side is all Indonesian, and so when I first met my uncle, he came up here, and it was his first time seeing snow and seeing Mount Hood, and he lost his mind when he first saw it. He's never seen anything like it. It was great.
The snow's amazing. The ice storms I can do without. Those get a little crazy
They've
sometimes.
been getting wilder. I would argue though that the summers here are getting crazier. It
Are
used
they?
to be, like a summer in Oregon 10 years ago was like, oh, it's like 85, 90 degrees. And now we're hitting like we're staying consistently around the upper 90s to hundreds. And it kind of
Wow,
hits
that is
different
high.
because
Yeah.
Portland's not really built for hot weather. So most older homes and buildings don't have air conditioning. So
And one of the best things
it's
about Portland is all those waterfront festivals too. So that's got to be a little different in the heat. But I love all the festivals down there along the
I love those
waterfront.
festivals. All the waterfront festivals are so much fun.
Too much. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of a Portland? You talk about Gresham. Were you kind of totally in the music scene? Were you one of the Northwest 13th hipsters at the coffee shop? Were you college town over by Portland
Oh, you
University?
freaking nailed it. Okay. So I grew up the musicians that I grew up with, most of us were most of the music crowd that I was hanging out with. Now that I think about it, a lot of them were from Vancouver, which is wild, like the Vancouver, Washington side.
Right.
Um when I was a kid, a lot of the music that was popular then was more metal and the heavier rock music, which
Hmm.
I loved that stuff, but that wasn't really necessarily the music that I wanted to write. My
Right.
music, when I really started my career with music, uh, it started becoming more the popular genre started to become more um, like Americana almost or acoustic. It was
Okay.
kind of around the
Right.
time that Mumford and Son had its rise and like that acoustic singer-songwriter thing was the thing.
Right.
And I was doing a lot more um it's hard to say because I kind of jumped around with sounds, but like alty, alt pop, pop rock. Just not something that was really palatable for a lot of people here. And so I wh- while I was doing music in Portland, it was really hard to kind of find a community that
Hmm.
a music community, just because vibes were different, and I
Right.
think that people identified um your character, your personality with that genre, and I think sometimes people the people that didn't know me kind of made speculation and vice versa. I was intimidated by other musicians because I was like, they're real musicians. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome here. Um, but I think I'm still kind of searching for that music community for myself. But
Right.
growing up in the music scene here, it's been mostly it's been mostly metal music or acoustic
Well, it's
music.
kind of funny too, because I mean, I'm a lot older than you are, but Portland, it's kind of you get stuck in time. Like it was that grunge music phase, and they don't know how to get
Oh,
out of that. They don't know how to redefine, right? So you kind of,
totally.
and one of the things I love about you exploring all your music is not only do you do the singer songwriter stuff, but you also do composing and you kind of bring elements of music together. It's amazing. How do you kind of work those elements together? Because you do
That's
it
a really
so
good question.
flawlessly.
That's a really good question. Well, I got my education in music composition. That was
Hmm.
really important to me because of just how I was exposed to music in the first place. And um, one of my biggest dreams was to um, compose trailer music. And and that was actually almost, I think that was really always the goal, to have my songs in trailers and in film trailers. And I felt like the only way I could do it was to build a following as an artist. So when I had the opportunity um, to do live gigs here, I couldn't hire a band because there really wasn't anyone that wanted to play my kind of music here. So
Hmm.
instead, what I did was I found um, a way to strip down my music and make it acoustic and more stripped, but arrange the parts for a string trio or a string duo. So it would be me
Nice.
with a cellist, a violist, or a violinist, and so all my shows would be um, primarily stripped with that strings, which was like a cool dynamic that I hadn't at that time seen a lot of people do, and
Right.
especially with my genre of music. And so that really, I felt, set me apart with the other kind of live gigs that were happening here. And so now, with my music, something that I've been trying to do this last year is something that I'm doing moving forward is making cinematic versions of my music. So, because I mean, like I like my songs how they are, but I also like when people trailerize music to sound
Right.
like how they do in movies or trailers. And so I'm trying to incorporate more composition into my songs.
I love that. Well, like I said, I can feel the elements in there, and it's so cool. One of my good friends, they go by Brandon and James, and it's a
Hmm.
cello and classical music that kind of pull together. And you can find these different genres. You can find the music elements that fit the songs or the styling. It can really be powerful. And I think you've really kind of tapped into that.
Totally. And I think back then, the Vitamin String Quartet really made it popular for instrumental music. And I think what really has popped it off and made it so popular now, especially, is the Bridgerton series, because they're known for making these pop covers into string quartets or string ensembles. And I think it's really cool that it's become more popular.
I love that. Let's do a little backstory for my listeners and tell them about this journey, because you've had a lot of different experiences growing up that I love to talk about. But let's start with kind of that transition. You're in Portland, you're a singer songwriter, you're kind of making a name for yourself or trying to. Then all of a sudden you have a health issue pop up that gets you noticed through a Maxwell House ad or something, I believe. And so now all of a sudden you're with the big boys, right? You're working with Harvey. Talk about
Yes.
that transition from being independent to professional, and then how long does that train last? Because that's got to be scary too when you get all the perks and the fun part of
Dude,
that, and then you're doing it on your own again, right?
man, that's such a good way of asking it too, because it really was like a fever dream. And how it all happened was for 5 years, I had this pain in my hip that started spreading through my body, where every step I took was like knives in my body.
Mm.
And it kind of sucked away all of the activity I wanted to do, and all of, like, kind of just like the quality of life was just really being diminished.
Right.
So I finally got that figured out. It turned out that there was a labrum tear on my hip, and that was caused because there was a tumor underneath that area. And from that, I always say that I'm going to try to give you as quick of a story as possible, but I always say that this was the best inconvenience of my life, because what happened was, I had to end up moving out of the place I was living because I couldn't keep paying rent because I wasn't working. And then my mom was like, well, if you can't find a place to live, you can live at my house in this walk-in closet I have in my living room. So I lived in that while I was recovering and starting to get, my health back and recovering. But I was also starting to get in shape and still writing music. So from that point, I started, once I started walking and running again, I started doing, some modeling. And there was a job I did. It was actually a commercial. The production company was, they overheard my story of living in a closet and my aspirations. And
It's Harry
they were,
Potter. Oh no.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But my closet looked a lot better. It had like nice globe lights. I made like a little backdrop for myself.
Had
Um,
style. I like it.
it was
Style,
style.
my friend.
It was style. And so they happened to have been working with Maxwell House. Maxwell House got in touch with me and said, "Hey, we want to. Your life is sad. Let's put it on TV." So from that, they documented my life, and they knew that I didn't really have a lot of resources at my disposal, and so they introduced me to Harvey Mason Jr., who's now the president of the Grammys. He was the president of the Recording Academy, and at that time, and we ended up working together. The song I did with him was called High, and it ended up popping off really quick, and I didn't expect it to. And ever since then, that's what gave me the momentum to keep releasing music. So to your question about how do you keep that afloat, or when did you go from having all the support to going solo again? I would say it'd been going really well for me until kind of, I think, a little bit after the pandemic in 2020, 2021, I think, the not having the resources anymore, because people were struggling, and no one really wanted to do any creative work outside
Right.
of themselves. At least up here, people were kind of over it because they had, the existentialism that came with being stuck in your house for so long. And I think that for me, I was really trying to keep that momentum going, but not having a support group really kind of made me, it really took, it kind of just pulled the rug from under me. And so the momentum from that dropped. And I think I've been kind of just trying to pick it back up ever since.
And it's a tough to do is I mean because there's so many venues out there now and music has changed so much just in your short lifetime. I
So
mean,
much.
it
Yeah.
used to be what you the goal was to release an album, and then all of a sudden it was let's do a single every other
All
day, and then all of a
singles every
sudden
month.
well, I'll
Yeah.
get 0.3 cents for every 1,000 streams I do, and it's like it just
Yep.
changed so much for you. So it's hard, and the momentum's still changing. So it's got to be tough as an independent artist to decide how do you keep just in front of that trend
Dude,
without with still being in the trend, right?
that's such a good question. I honestly don't know if I have an answer because the more I've been looking into it, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but it just feels like this might be one of the most unsustainable industries in the world right now. Just the way that some people running these companies are treating their musicians, and so doing it as an independent artist is really hard because you're investing your own money into it. You don't have anyone backing you, and so I think one thing though that has made coming from Portland really nice is Portland's really famous for the DIY attitude.
Right.
And
Very much
if
so.
no one's going to help you, you just got to do it yourself. And um, most everything that most of the products that I've done and the content I've done has been either made by me or the brainchild of mine, and or made with me and a close friend that was willing to help me at one point. But it was really guerrilla style and really tight knit. And we didn't have a budget or a big production, but we were able to take advantage of our limitations and use that to make something cool. And so I think being able to survive in this industry has not been easy or really happening, but we've been able to still stay creative without breaking the bank.
And I love that. I mean, I've listened to a couple interviews and everything, doing my research, and I love how much you put the emphasis on the authenticity and not the polish and just being yourself, right? Because I think that is a trend that needs to come back from the
Yeah,
overproduced Insta-gay lifestyles or Instagram influencers, right? Where it's everything's got
yeah.
to be,
I
um,
think,
I mean,
yeah,
all the forms. It's
I
crazy.
agree. Yeah, I agree, Scott. I think that honestly, I feel like ever since TikTok got its rise, um, more people are we don't care anymore about that. We want that authenticity, and nothing needs to look polished. And that's something that I've been striving for with my music. Every production I've done, I've tried to strip it back a lot more because
Right.
it does sound really polished, and that's thanks to my co-producer. The guy that mixes all my music is Justin Abel. He's up here. He's actually in Gresham, and shout out Gresham. Let's go.
Woohoo!
But he makes it sound so good, and so we're both in this. I think we're kind of like late to the game, but I think that ever since like TikTok, everything from social media um, to marketing to the sound of music is just becoming more authentic and um, less polished. And I think that that's what I think it shows more. I think it shows your fans and it shows your audience more of who you are rather than what you can provide for them your creativity, because everyone knows that the creativity comes from the overflow of your heart and who you are. And so why polish that up and try to make it look you know more fancier or different than what it is? That's what people want to
Well
see.
said.
Yeah.
Well said. I love that. I want to go back and touch on a little bit what I said in the intro about your mental health journey, because I think that's so important. Your advocacy is so admirable, and you've had your own journey through that, right? I mean, you've
Yeah.
gone through a lot of the alphabet that we hear, the ADHDs and things like that.
Yep.
Talk about how that was growing up, how, the self awareness of it, and then how you've kind of moved on and learned to adapt it to your lifestyle.
That's a great way to ask that, Scott. I think it has been I'm going to try to be as articulate and efficient because there's a lot to say about it. Growing up, it was weird because people were making fun. So sorry, I've already failed the goal. I I have Tourette's, and that was kind of the Tourette's and ADHD. ADHD, most people have it. It's the triforce of mental health. It's
Right.
ADHD, OCD, and then anxiety. And like one triggers the other, triggers the other, triggers the other. And um, so I had those things, but I also had Tourette's, which were triggered by ADHD, anxiety, with those three. And so when I was a kid, I had I had developed these tics, and I remember specifically the moment that I realized that something was wrong because I was getting in trouble for something I didn't realize was wrong. And it was in class. I was just being too loud, but it was just my tics. And I realized growing up, people were noticing it, and they were making fun of it, or they were just like, "What's going on? Why are you doing that thing?" And I always had an excuse for it because I just didn't want to bring attention to it. And it wasn't until, honestly, it wasn't until like 20, 2017 or 18 that I got diagnosed properly for all of those things. And that's when I started becoming more aware of what was happening. Why was I being triggered in the first place? What were my tics? How were they being triggered? And how to navigate through it. Now that I know what it is, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because back when you were naive and didn't know any better, it was like, it's just a thing, whatever.
Right.
But back then too, you also felt a little bit isolated or ostracized, a little bit like you felt different, but it was like, I don't like saying I always felt different, because I think that everyone's different, everyone has something, but you do feel like when you're in a crowd, something is like off. Specifically for me with Tourette's, because they'd be like, "Why are you doing that thing? What is wrong with you?" And working in the environments I work in, when people are kind of close in your face doing things like makeup or styling and stuff, it's uncomfortable because you're in close proximity. So there was a lot of like insecurity with that. But now that I'm aware of it, it's like, it's nice to know, because I can say, "Oh, it's my
Sure.
Tourette's." But you also don't want to make people feel uncomfortable about it. But you also know it exists, and you're hoping people don't realize it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like, well, now that I know, it's easy to have control. It's easy to control how you feel about it, but also it's not.
Well, and it's interesting to say you talked about that timeline. That sounds like about the same time when all this Maxwell House and stuff was happening. As you said, those things all lead to one another, right? So you have one leading to another. And it's like, okay, of course it's going to manifest itself more. And now you got to be aware of it. And now that
Mm-hmm.
you're aware of it, it's causing more of the anxiety.
Catch
I
22.
just can't imagine it's got to be a circular like
Yeah,
killer.
catch 22, man. And it was crazy because at that time too, trying to have medication for it, the community that I was with or involved in, um, they, I wouldn't say they didn't believe in medication, but I wouldn't say they did believe in medication. So I felt a lot of shame with
Right.
that as well. And I think that that's still common here, because a lot of people, many people don't trust medication, which is like understandable. But um, I think that the best thing that could have happened for me was actually getting professional help, getting a professional diagnosis, and not just scouring the internet saying, "Hey Reddit, what's wrong with me?" or "Hey
Yeah,
WebMD,"
right. Don't do that.
because that's so dangerous, and that could lead to so many other things if you don't have a professional helping you navigate through it. Uh, so for me, I think the best thing that I did was having that professional help and having that guidance. Not a single professional ever said, "You need to take this medication." They
Mm,
always offered it as an option for me. And
oh,
I
that's
think
good.
that's really important,
Yeah.
because I think that's giving you the control of your own life. And I've always valued that with my professionals. And um and then I started getting into other things like EMDR, and TMS, which I don't know if you're familiar with either of those things.
A little bit of TMS, yeah.
TMS, yeah, transcranial magnetic stimulation for anxiety and OCD, and ADHD, and then, or not ADHD, anxiety, and then um, EMDR is eye motion desensitization and reprocessing, which is kind of like
Oh,
helping. It's like they got this light bar, and it ticks back and forth, and you follow with your eyes, and oftentimes there's a sound that is affiliated with it that you hear, or you're feeling a pulsing, and you have a therapist or a professional guiding you through the reprocessing of different traumas. And so I think that moment when I started, that was what helped my self-awareness and how to recognize different things in my own psyche. So I didn't project things onto other people, or so I could take responsibility for what was happening to me. Because I feel like once you get these diagnoses, you have a responsibility with how you live your life with these things. And I think something that is important is to be able to take responsibility of how you navigate with your mental health, and and not justifying anything with your mental health. Because I think that I've experienced a lot of, in my life, I made a lot of bad decisions at one point or another. And I said, oh, it was my mental health. It's my mental health thing, my mental illness. And I don't think I don't think that does, I think that's dishonorable for you and for the people that you're around.
So well said. And I appreciate you sharing the journey with everyone. I'm sure it's helped countless people you don't even know of. And it's like you said, you have a couple choices, right? You can kind of wallow in it or use it as an excuse. Or, I mean, I think I read you like were trying to chase this for 5 years, trying to get diagnosis from different people and not really
Yeah.
knowing what's going on. But that's taking control of your own life and kind of trying to be proactive for it. I think that's the only way that you can really do
Thank
something with
you.
that. So good on you for that, man.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, and I think that is the thing. I've always been someone that's proactive, and I don't want to sit here and say, well, this is my life now, and then just accept whatever is happening, because that's not fair to me, that's not fair to my life, and that's not fair to whatever creativity I have. And kind of like how you said, it's like helps people that you don't know. There's so much art that people have made that have affected me, that if they just sat and wallowed for themselves, um that would have robbed me of that life change, you know? And so the least I could do was take responsibility and be proactive and not let these things weigh me down, because you have a duty to yourself and to the world, more or less, maybe.
No,
I don't
well
know.
said. Exactly. Well, let's get into the music, my friend, because I want to talk about this. And
Let's do it.
composing and songwriting are two entirely different things. So I want to go into the songwriting side a little more at first. Are you more of a lyrics person first or a melody person? Are you always pounding on the
Ah,
desk, or is it a good mix for
that
you?
is such a good question. Yeah, I think that it depends on the time, the time period of my life. That was a hair. The time period of my life, um, and my circumstances, like my current circumstances, wherever I am. Um, I think often it's always been the melody. I think that melody is king, but as of late, I think subconsciously though, it always truly the true ruler has been lyrics for me, because
Mm,
I will sit on lyrics forever, which is not necessarily good. Aspiring songwriters, or just songwriters in general, just know that is not good to just sit on lyrics. It's good to be able to get whatever's out and just like keep working that muscle. But I hang on to like the code. It's like an equation, and I'm like, what's the right equation or formula for this one line? And it will drive me crazy and literally keep me up at night. So I think lyrics might actually be what controls my life.
I love that. And talk about, how does ADHD and stuff like that affect your writing? Does it make it harder to collaborate? Does it make it easier to collaborate with other people?
Ooh, oh,
Talk
that's a good
about your
question.
songwriting with other people.
Songwrite. So I haven't done a lot of songwriting with other people, and I think that goes back to what I was saying with trying to find a musical community. Trying to get involved with one has been really hard. Um, I feel like there's two sides of ADHD. One is squirrel, and then the other one is I am so locked in, I'm dialed in, and we're
Mm,
getting this done. And so when that happens, and when you feel that pull, and something I've always worked on is being able to activate that in myself, and just like lock in, dial in, and just go. I think it's really helpful because we can stay on track and really lock in. Um, as far as like what it's my experiences so far with writing with other songwriters has been both. It's been there's times that I'm like, oh, we're locked in, let's just keep going, I could do this all day. And then the other parts are like, I don't even know what to say, because your brain is like all over the place. You have like a
Fair.
million
Yeah,
different thoughts
fair.
at the same time, and so that becomes really, really fatiguing. Like it's really mentally fatiguing.
Well, and talk about like musical influences. Composing is kind of a feeling, right? You're doing the feeling of the movement of the movie, of the whatever you're doing. That's
Yeah.
kind of feeling wise. And when you have influence for songwriting, is there any artist that can kind of help you with that that's totally different than composing?
Man, I would argue that songwriting and composing are actually pretty parallel in that, where it is that feeling. The only difference with songwriting is now you have to put it into words, which for me, I don't feel like I'm a very articulate person. So that's why composing is a lot easier for me, because um I can make the sound, I can express vocally how I feel through sound, but not through words, which I know someone listening to this is going to be like, well, technically using words is also sound. But
Slap them. Let's
I
slap
know, get
them
out of
down
here.
there.
Get out of here, you dork. I think that um you said what what artists help
What
me?
artists has kind of influenced your work, and is there any people
One
that help influence your composing or anything?
yes. I think 100% Jack Antonoff from Bleachers, also the guitar
Mm.
player from Fun back in the day. He, I think, was the first person that understood how my brain works in a
I
way
love
that no one has ever done before. Because in his first album, Strange Desire, uh, there are so many, and I would also say Gone Now too, which is his sophomore album. He does exactly what my brain needs to keep me keep me attentive, which is like, while the song's going, here's a random sound, here's a thing that just happened to, like, kind of like, it's that we call it ear candy, but it's the thing that kind of catches your attention and keeps you guessing what's going to happen next. And I think he just sings to my ADHD. And so I think that I really, really took from his production, which helped me. Him, and actually I would say John Bellion too is really good at this, but um, they helped me. Uh, I think they inspired me to accept what's going on in my brain and use that to make whatever felt
I
true
love
to
that.
me.
I love that. If you guys don't know who Antonoff is, be sure to look it up. I mean, 40 years old wonder
Woo!
kid to have that much talent and success at 40. Thank
Yo,
you, right?
he is running the music scene right now. He is running it.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's get into tongue tie. This is something we can all relate to. I appreciate you being a huge LGBTQ ally, but we're talking about a girl. It very much represents the LGBTQ. It's like, how do I talk to this person? What was the inspiration behind it? And talk
Man,
about the song, man.
I
It's
think
awesome.
well, the inspiration I feel like is pretty straightforward, but okay. So I will say, I ultimately it's the whole idea in general about what it is like having feelings for someone and not knowing how to express them to someone. When you feel like there is something there, but you're just still so scared to do it. I am known for my self-sabotage, and I think that there have been times in my history where I've had people even say, "Dude, you know you're friend zoning yourself right now, right?" I'm like, I just don't know how to. It's just it's so scary, it's so risky, because like, what happens? What are the ramifications of this decision once I put these words out in the air? And um, so that is a part of what the inspiration was from for this song.
I love it. It's so much fun. Your social media is pissing me off a little bit. You're already this good looking guy, and all of a sudden, you're Superman jumping buildings in a single bound, Supermaning it on me. On
Calf
your...
raises.
I love it though. But I mean, we all have those kind of insecurities when it comes to meeting other people and talking to people. And then, like you said, the friend zone is such a horrible place to be. And it's like you have those, but they're universal experiences, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I feel like this is such a specific song, or like the song is so specific to a moment in my life, but also it's so universal and relatable that it makes it easy to be like, hey, you guys know how it feels when you know? Yeah, well, here's a song about it.
Right?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, and I remember, like I said, I would do my research. It's like, you're a man all about the sad songs. Talk about the positivity in music. How do you kind of balance those two
You
segments for
called
you?
me out, Scott, man, dude. You're right. Yes, that's a great question. How do I balance out the sad lyrics with the happy sound? That I think that's what it is. I love writing some unfortunate tunes, but or unfortunate lyrics, but like the sound of um I love the sound of the upbeat tunes. And so I think there was there was one time, one of the first shows I ever did, uh someone came up to me and was like, it was really good. It's really sad though. And it's kind of weird because that's not your personality. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. But uh but also I was like, I guess my songs do sound pretty sad. Everything's pretty dark. Um but then, as I was just working on other songs, I think the first song that really kind of made it that way was there. I wrote a song called "The Color Blue," and originally it was supposed to be a really sad song, but then I was like, oh, this person doesn't deserve a song. I'm not going to write this about them. And so instead they got 5 words in that song, but the song sounded really happy and fun. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna make this perceived to be a happy moment, and but the undertones are gonna be kind of sad, much like my favorite anime, Digimon. It's a happy looking show, but it's got a lot of dark undertones.
There you go, right?
Fun
Bringing
fact.
them back. I like it. Well, Bo Baskaro, this has been an absolutely amazing interview. We have to have you back because your talent's going to keep leaping bounds itself there. I mean, I'm just so impressed with your work so far. We didn't even get into your backstory. I mean, I'd love to talk about your Indonesian roots and meeting your dad. I mean, I read all this
Oh
great
yeah, I'm always
stuff that
happy
I'd
to talk
love to
about
go into. We just don't have the time
it.
right
Yep.
now, but you got to come back, my friend. This has been
I
so
would
much fun.
love to. I'd love to kick it with y'all again.
Remind everyone where they can find your music, a website,
Yeah.
Instagram, ever. Where
Yeah,
can they follow
literally.
along?
Yep. You look me up on Bo Baskoro at everything. So Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. Just Google Bo Baskoro, Baskoro, and I'm all over there. You can find my music on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Deezer. If you're someone that uses Deezer. Shout out to Deezer and Tidal, though. They're the best paying music platforms we got out here. So if you
Nice.
want to, just stream that baby.
I love that. Don't give your Snapchat out. I have an LGBTQ audience. You will not have another night's sleep for the next 3 years. But I
Oh,
love that. Bo Baskoro, I appreciate you so much. Thank you very much for being on the
thanks,
Left of
man.
Straight show today. We're going to have a special 5 questions with Bo next week, so be sure to look for that. Don't be cheap-ass bastards. Buy the music. No streaming allowed. That's my rule for all my
Let's
artists here. I
go.
appreciate it. Bo, stay on the line for me. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, likewise.
All right, we'll talk to everyone. We'll talk to everyone next week. Thanks for tuning into Left of Straight Interviews. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Straight Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website for contests and other news and information. See you next week.